young Grasshopper here. Welcome to the Cliffside Bunker in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And this is another episode of Grasshopper's G40 Tournament Edition rules. We're going to go over the changes, modifications, and everything that is new regarding my Tournament Edition rules. It's for those that are practicing to come to Toronto in August 2022, where I'll have my second G40 Invitational Tournament, but it's also for people that just want to try something fresh and new. I can tell you it's really fun, and I just want to go over everything in great detail just so there's no stone left unturned when it comes to these Tournament Edition rules that I've created with some friends of mine. We play tested them all through 2020. And so in the last video we talked all about the new United Kingdom. We have amalgamated both ANZAC and UK Pacific. We have combined their units. They're all using ANZAC Grey. We have combined their income. It's a total of 27 IPC starting income, and they are totally separate turn sequence from the UK Europe with the tan pieces, and UK Pacific with the grey with Calcutta as their capital, UK Europe tan with London as their capital. Now, we went over all kinds of things in the last video. We talked about briefly this setup change. This is now a minor industrial complex in Calcutta, not a major. We're going to go over some of the little rules, the extra stuff, the side rules, if you will. So we got here in the Pacific with this combined UK nation a bit of a force. It's definitely more powerful than the out of box because the multinational forces that used to be split are now combined. They can move, maneuver, attack, and defend together now all as one within the same turn sequence. And of course, with Calcutta as the capital, this will eventually become a major industrial complex. We'll get into that. But with 27 IPCs, money can be spent here as well as here. All right, so it's up to them, more choice and whatnot. And also we have a new order of play. We talked briefly about it in the last video, but we're going to touch on it again. We're going to dedicate an entire video to the order of play later on, but we're going to touch on it here. We see that the new UK Pacific is second after Germany, before Japan. So with the 27 IPCs combined with the ability to strategically maneuver units and attack simultaneously, and with the just the freedom to spend here or here with that 27 IPCs. Not only that, but they go first, giving them an extra spending round ahead of Japan's first spending round. So not only can these units move away from Japan, talking about these and these, they can move away from Japan. They can avoid that J1 attack being stronger by taking them out of range before Japan even has a chance to go. But they can also build with the 27 IPCs on this factor, get them right on the board right away again before Japan even has a chance to go. So yeah, that's pretty powerful. A lot of people in my comment section of that video were like, wow, how can Japan win? I mean, obviously in the tournament edition, you know, we're looking for players that have experience, know how to play, say, both sides. You know, not that they need to be great players, not that they need to be even good players. Just come and have fun. But the point is, at this level, entering a tournament, we should have the natural ability to know what we want to do with Japan. All right. And we're going to talk about all that throughout this video series, but also through the video content on the channel. If you're not confident playing with Japan, check out the content on the channel and future videos over the next few months, and we're going to address that a lot, okay? So, yeah, we have quite the allied presence now with these new Pacific allies going on here up against Japan. So we do have some rules to help balance this dynamic. I'll say it right here, right now. The reason why we need this is we need the order of play to be the way it is. We need the separate nation to be the way it is. And it's all for one purpose, and that is so two players can be doing their turns simultaneously. And it's going to cut down on time spent during game rounds. It's really going to allow us at the tournament to get good, significant, complete games done all in one day. Regardless if you're a slow player or if you just burn and blaze through your turns, it doesn't matter. The point is everybody's got the opportunity now with this structure, with this tournament structure. There's no reason why full complete games cannot be had in one day at the tournament. So that is the main reason. It's for tournament structure, fast game rounds. It must be like this in this new order of play. It must be like this with this divided nation from this nation. And it must always, of course, be the assignments, the player assignments, the mandatory player assignments listed in the forum thread that I'll provide in the description box of this video. So that's just a recap of really what we just went over in the last video, where we're at when talking about tournament edition rules. And again, check out the forum thread. It's a link in the description box of this video sending you to accentallies.org, and it will detail everything that you need to know that is changed from the out-of-box rules. Now, I personally don't feel like that a lot has changed from out-of-box. But I also understand by changing something like this, you basically have created an entire new game. That would be fair to say. I mean, the order of play alone really changes things. But if you think of what Gen Con did quite a while ago, Larry and a couple of people, I believe Greg Smorley was part of it, but they came up with a whole new starting setup called 1942. So 1942 Global is like this fringe setup that is specifically used and specifically created by Larry Harris and others to help out with tournament, with the Gen Con tournaments. And that is prominently, I believe it's still prominently the G40 game that is played at Gen Con. Now, I don't want to say anything negative about this scenario, about that event. I've never attended, and I've played this scenario a couple of times, but I didn't like it. And if we consider and we think about, okay, we played G40 because it's a great game. It's got a lot of chemistry and magic in this setup that we enjoy so much. I mean, the strategy and the decisions alone and just the freedom to do this or that really make this game amazingly intriguing. And a lot of it comes from the magic created by the setup. Now, 1942 setup for Gen Con changes all of that wildly, in my opinion. Really, really waters it down. It's doesn't have that flavor from a G40 setup. So we have the G40 setup, but we have changed some rules. Let's get into it right now. So in the beginning of post number 2, after the post above that talks about the new United Kingdom, we go straight into the order of play. Now, I'm just going to go over it briefly. Like I said, I'm going to spend a separate video talking in greater detail because there's things involved. Can openers, blockers, crowbars, all kinds of strategies that have changed now because the order of play has changed so drastically. Number 1, Germany, then UK Pacific, then Japan, UK Europe, Italy, China, then Russia. After Russia is the United States. Then following up is France. So much, much different. We'll get into strategies and everything about how this affects the game again in its own video, but it's worth saying here because it's a positive, it's an advantage that the UK Pacific goes before Japan, as I stated earlier. Now, what can we do to sort of limit the UK Pacific now that they seem ultra powerful? All right. So we have a few changes. Again, look in the forum thread. We have a few changes, and one of them is when talking about the Dutch islands here. Sumatra worth 4 original Dutch. Java worth 4 original Dutch. Celebes worth 3 original Dutch. Dutch New Guinea worth nothing but original Dutch. Now, I talked a little bit about the national objectives in the last video, and the national objectives have changed for the United Kingdom only. So UK Pacific have a few different national objectives, as well as UK Europe. Their national objectives have also changed. Everybody else, all other nations besides outside of the United Kingdom, is the same. So the difference is with one particular one I want to talk about with the UK Pacific. Remember in out of box, if Anzac lands a single infantry here and controls this, I think it's this, plus this, without it being Dutch. So allies control blah, 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 not including the Dutch. So therefore, it was required that Anzac comes up here, puts an infantry here, controls this, so that we, as the allies, make that condition legit so that we can collect the 5, right? So it's a bit of a gimmicky little NO. Now, I'm not going to get into all the NOs that I don't like. I'm keeping the mass majority of national objectives from G40 in my tournament edition rules. But in this now, in tournament edition rules, all that's required to get that 5 is to have a infantry on one of the Dutch islands. So it doesn't have to specifically be just this one. It can be on any one. Now, here's the biggest change that's going to help balance the out-of-box rules, which state that if Anzac or UK Pacific come here, and I have an Anzac one just to make an out-of-box reference. Of course, Anzac's not in this game, but just to make an out-of-box reference, if they take this, then they're going to collect the 4 IPCs right away. Now, this is a really bizarre rule. It's actually something that is integrated into the rules and needs to be explained. It's kind of strange. I remember in the forum threads, there was lots of questions, tons of same questions being popped up all about this, because something even more strange was that aircraft were allowed to land. So you're taking Java. It's not a liberation because Japan does not have it yet. You're taking Java from the Dutch. It's some sort of guardianship rule in the out-of-box rule book. So you're going to go up on the income tracker for IPCs. And not only that, you can land aircraft on it. So it seems like a newly taken territory, but not really. So Dutch is friendly, and it is an originally controlled territory of Dutch, so I can understand landing the plane there. But it's confusing to people because you're taking the income away from an ally and calling it your own now, and that making it a newly taken territory. You can still land planes. So this is an extra rule. This is an added rule about the Dutch islands in out of box to facilitate the Anzac or UK being able to take more money. Now, that may have made sense when they were a divided income and there was only 17 IPCs for UK there and 10 IPCs for Anzac here. That may have made sense. But now that they're combined and they're making 27 IPCs, this rule, this special rule, is not needed. We're going to revert back to basically the same rules everybody else has. If you think about what it says about America landing on these islands, the same Dutch island rule that allows Anzac or UK Pacific to do so will not allow America to do so. So if the United States somehow travel all the way through here while neutral, blah, 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 and they're up close, they are brought into the war, or they declare war, and this hasn't been taken, or this or something, and it's the Americans that decide to come in here and jump on Celebes, well, that wouldn't be very good maneuver because they wouldn't have the same privilege in out of box to take the 3 IPCs, the same privilege that Anzac has and UK has from out of box. So basically, America comes and lands on Celebes, Java, or Sumatra. They don't get anything. They're just there. They're just there on a Dutch island. And that's how we're going to now make it for all the Pacific allies. So UK, Pacific, America. You land on these while they're still Dutch, you don't get any money. All right, so it's 27 IPCs. Plus, whatever you can get this way, the income can be had by coming in here and taking these territories. And unlike out of box, anything over here will, in fact, go to the Calcutta income, it being the gray pieces that take it. So anything that the gray units take, the UK Pacific take on this side of the board will be added to their income for the Calcutta factory against the Japanese over here for that Pacific economy, okay? And vice versa. I mean, if the UK Europe make it all the way over here and say liberate Sumatra, remember, you can't just land on it, take it from the Dutch and collect that money. We've changed that rule. So if they come over here with their transport or aircraft carrier and then they liberate Sumatra, then the 4 IPCs, if it's a TAN unit that takes control, will go to the Europe economy. All right. So I hope that's clear. I don't want to sound redundant, but I really want to hammer that home, that taking an infantry, landing here while it's Dutch, will not gain you the income of these islands while they're still Dutch in some sort of guardianship type rule. We're going back to the same rule for everybody. This is an ally. Dutch are allies to the UK Pacific as if they had their capital conquered or captured. And just like France, if Paris falls and there's French territories over there, you have to wait until an enemy comes and actually takes these territories. And then in a liberation role, you come and liberate it from the Japanese, and then you take that 4 IPCs there, or the 3 IPCs here. Now remember, it is beneficial to come and take an infantry and come here, even if it doesn't get you the 4 IPCs, because when at war with Japan and you're collecting national objectives, this is going to matter, because one of the national objectives state as a condition that you'll get 5 IPCs if you have at least 1 land unit on any of these islands that are originally controlled by the Dutch. Okay, moving on. So speaking of declaring war, okay, so here's another thing that we've changed. So that's kind of something, obviously, that is a counterbalance to the type of money and power that this new UK Pacific nation has, okay? So they cannot collect this money, and that just makes sense. We're kicking out a weird goofy rule that was added to G40 out of box. We're just removing that, and it's the same for everybody now, so that should be easy to remember. Second of all, because the order of play is of such, and we got the UK Pacific here second, we need to change the declaration of war rule. So in out of box UK Pacific, we're allowed to declare war at any time during any round. Now, obviously, there was consequences involved when it comes to the fact that if they declare war with Japan, Japan is still going to get that 10 IPC bonus, trade with America bonus. They're still going to get that $10. Now they're going to be able to come down and attack the Pacific allies down here while keeping America still out of the war. So there were serious consequences of declaring war for the UK, but nonetheless, out of box allowed it to happen. Now, because we're here in the order of play, okay, as a counter, we are going to limit when they can declare war on Japan. So the United Kingdom Pacific may not declare war on Japan until the beginning of their 3rd turn. That's the new rule for tournament edition. So if they come here and they get this single turn out of the way, that's turn 1, then Japan will do their turn 1. Let's go through and flip back. Now we're entering turn 2. And Japan hasn't even taken their turn 2 yet, and we're already at UK Pacific. And they still cannot declare war here against Japan. And then, of course, turn 2 there for Japan. And we go all the way through. And then we flip all the way back. Now it's turn 3. Now, at the beginning of turn 3, may the UK Pacific now declare war. And, of course, here, Japan, whether it's all the way back to turn 1 or back to turn 2, if Japan has an unprovoked attack on UK, or they just verbally declare war on the United Kingdom, or by attacking this or anything else in range, then of course that restriction is now off. They have had an unprovoked attack from Japan against them, whether it's it would be turn 2, because there's no way that could happen on the first game round. So the first game round, UK Pacific is 100% not able to attack or declare war on Japan. Now they can on turn 2 if on Japan's turn 1 there was a declaration of war or an attack on units that can be reached like this. All right. But if there is no attack turn 1 Japan, and if if Japan fails to attack the UK on turn 2, then the UK Pacific will declare war, obviously, on turn 3. Now, about turn 3, imagine we're at turn 3 at the beginning, and the UK Pacific now declares war on Japan. Now, they're going to be eligible for those national objectives. Now, remember in the last video, we talked about how the national objectives for the UK Pacific have changed. So the UK Pacific will collect 5 IPCs if the Allies control Shanghai. The UK Pacific will claim 5 IPCs national objectives if the Allies control Hong Kong, and 5 IPCs if the Allies control Malaya, and then remember 5 IPCs if there's a land unit on any one of these islands, right? So lots and lots of money to be had if Japan holds out, does not attack turn 1, does not attack turn 2, and then before Japan's turn 3, UK Pacific is going to have the opportunity, of course, to declare war, and they're going to collect a lot of money, because surely they'll have this still. Surely they'll have this. And they should have at least 1 land unit on any of these islands. That would be 15 IPCs on top of the 27 plus, because they may have more money here and more money here. So as Japan, you need to be aware of that as part of your strategy. If you do not attack Hong Kong turn 2, if you do not attack any infantry left on one of these islands turn 2, or if you're not in a position to also attack Malaya turn 2, then there's going to be some significant national objective money collected by the UK Pacific already on top of a strong economy. So as a suggestion, Japan should always try to have a strategy to attack on their turn 2. Obviously, if there's a sea lion going on, if there's a plan for sea lion and it's an absolute must, or if there's a plan for the Africa token that the Axis are doing and it's an absolute must to keep America out of the war here without that landing so that they could accomplish that token, then they will hold off and not attack turn 2, allowing UK Pacific to collect that national objective bonus money. So we're going to go through that also in another video. I just wanted to explain the nuts and bolts of that dynamic when talking about not being able to attack until turn 3, because even though it sounds harsh, what, you can't attack till turn 3, because of the order of play, it's actually a lot sooner for Japan than it sounds. All right. So other rules, we talk about this here, this minor factory. So the UK Pacific has 27 IPCs. They can buy all kinds of cool stuff, but it can only be 3 units here total. And of course here, the minor in Sydney, 3 units total here. So they can divide that 27 IPCs between units here and or here. And then of course, when the UK Pacific does enter the war, whether it's an unprovoked attack on turn 1 or turn 2 Japan, or they need to wait until the beginning of their turn 3 and they declare war at the beginning, then this will automatically become a major industrial complex. So if Japan attacks, this switches. If there's a declaration right at the beginning of turn 3, this switches right at the beginning of turn 3. So that will eventually become a major, and we have to focus and make sure that the 27 plus the national objective money plus any bonus money that's going on over here can all be put on a major industrial complex, which puts even more emphasis and decision on when does Japan attack the Pacific Allies, right? Now, Japan's national objectives have not changed. They're going to still get that 10 IPCs if they don't go to war with America and leave America out. Obviously, when attacking the UK Pacific, that would bring the Americans into the war, just like out of box, okay? So, some declaration of war things going on that we need to be aware of and understand completely. A lot of it is very, very similar to out of box, simply because the same political situations that happen to Anzac are the same political situations that happen to UK Pacific in out of box rules. So we're just combining them with the same conditions, that if there's an attack and what it means for America and whatnot, it's just the same political situation for both of these nations in out of box. So now it's fine to just combine them. So this will become a major industrial complex. Be aware of that, and how, if you're playing Japan, when you bring them into the war so that they have that spending power. Sometimes what I see happening in playtesting is they come here, they take Persia, and they place a factory. So a miner here, a miner here, and a miner here. And then of course it won't be long until this one becomes a major. All right, so lots of potential spending power for this UK Pacific, okay? All right, so yeah, Japan does have their hands full, but with the way that it's designed, there are some things that help Japan, but you have to be aware as the UK Pacific not to just spend crazy and maneuver stuff all this way and never spend here. Like, there's some discipline involved, because even though it seems like Calcutta will never fall in playtesting, I've seen it fall more than a few times. So I discussed all these new little rules to help balance the UK Pacific. A big thing is just not allowing them to have any of this supplement cash. Keeping this a minor to begin the game so that they can't just stack and pile with their money right away while neutral. Okay, and it's going to be up to Japan. It's going to be up to Japan. I'm going to show you some strategies on how you can neutralize this, especially an aggressive UK Pacific that likes to take that money and buy fighters and aircraft carriers and maybe come here and buy a factory and supply Russia with fighters from here. I mean, if they're going to do that with their money, then you got to go for Calcutta, and obviously going for Calcutta is a good strategy anyway, because it's a victory token, which we will talk about in a future video. So thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you being interested in these, and I can tell you that it's super fun. We're just getting through it. There's not a whole lot to talk about. I just make long videos because I reiterate the same things over and over again just to hammer them home. There's going to be a playlist created for all the videos talking about Tournament Edition, and once we get over the rules, we're going to go straight into strategies on what you can do, how you can go after some tokens, and how you can win at this game at the tournament in August 2020 here in Toronto. Or you could just play them fresh with your group, the same way a lot of people play the 1942 scenario that Larry created for Gen Con, right? Well, thanks a lot, guys. Cheers. Really appreciate it. May all your rolls be ones. Until the next time, take care.